Hey guys, this is Dardamos with Dardamos Dominions. We're back with turn 9 once more, and I am joined by Missourian. How are you doing, dude?
Hi.
And RCK, how are you doing, dude?
Good.
And then Grippa will be joining us very shortly, but he had to step away for a second. Missourian, we were just in the last episode, we were talking about the Elephant Expand, and do you want to go into depth? You brought it up in between. I said, hey, hold on. We're going to start an episode. I want you to bring this up. So what were you talking about?
Yeah, so some thoughts on elephants that pertain to notions of urgency versus efficiency is what I started to talk about. And we were talking on Discord recently about Go, actually, and the notion in Go that there's this sense of the urgent move versus the efficient move. And elephants, I think their role is not in expansion, but they're an idea of this notion of the urgent move in dominions, because what you can do with elephants is, if you've got good scales, is you can raise a lot of them at once. And for an opponent that's not prepared, they can be a pivotal unit. They're not a unit that you're going to keep around a long time. They're not a unit that you would consider efficient in terms of the gold cost. Like you mentioned, 300 gold for this. But they're a pivotal unit in the sense that they can change the outcome of a war very easily. And that's an example in Dominions of what I would call the urgent move versus the efficient move. Probably the classic example of the urgent move in Dominions would be the PD dump, right? PD is by design inefficient. And when you watch some of the Dom tubers, like Lucid in particular, in the old games, he would wring his hands in consternation anytime he spent a point at PD because it was inefficient. But as time went along, you see him dropping 20 PD like it's nothing. And I think that's just this growing recognition of the need for urgency versus efficiency. And it's something that we lose when we're theory crafting, because you can't talk about the urgent move independent of the particulars of a given game. You can only talk about efficient moves. So I think we've got blinders as players more than we should.
I think that also, to go one step farther, is a lot of times when we're looking at the fights, and we don't have a really good example from this turn, but we'll sit here and say, okay, well, you lost 110 gold and they lost 175 plus 375. So you came out ahead because 400 gold versus 110 gold. And now this is against independent, so it's a little bit, the math is a little different. But if this was actually a fight, I see a lot of people doing the gold differences. RCK, do you use the gold difference where you actually count up gold and see how efficiently the battle went?
I wouldn't really use it. When I look at a battle report and look at the casualties taken, I don't think of it usually as a gold cost. I think of it as how many turns it took to build that army. How many mages died? How many are they recruit only mages from the capital? Did they take 2 turns apiece? Even if they were recruit anywhere, how many turns did they take? How long did it take him to build that army, regardless of how much it cost? How many losses did he actually take? Because I mean, a war can be over in 5 turns. It's not just a war is going to last 3 years in game 36 turns. It's going to be over really fast. So if you're able to knock out pieces or elements of his army that take a long time to recuperate, I mean, you're really hitting them hard at that point. Because I mean, gold, yeah, you can make 1,000 gold return, 2,000 gold return, depending on what state you are in the game, or even player. But I mean, there could be summons. I mean, there's different ways to judge gold. Whereas when it comes to building units, how fast you can build them is kind of slower.
And
I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, I think it's kind of an interesting thing because, we're talking about last turn where Grippa moved from this province here, And even if he was successful, and I mean, he was successful until Van, stomped him, he would have had to, he would have been stuck right here. Oh, hey, Grippa, you back?
Yes, I am.
So we're talking about the efficiency of gold and the, and looking at gold value. You would have been stuck right here, dude. There's no way that you could have gone unless you wanted to fight against these lizard men. And even then, it's a river crossing. You would have had these troops.
My expansion.
Your troops would have been stuck. Do you think that if this was a Dai Oni here, would you have gone for this one, or would you have, gone back to your territory again?
I don't think I would have been able to take the lizards with the Dione.
Okay, so you would have went and did the lizards.
If I really needed to, I could have moved that Dione that's northeast into that province as well to take it with that group.
Now, why were you okay abandoning the Onishugo army?
Well, I was kind of hoping to not abandon my beautiful expansion party there. I mean, party is generous. There was like 4 bowmen, like archers left, and that was it.
But it is a mage, dude.
Yes, I am sad that I lost my Onishugo.
But, so why wasn't it? Was it?
It was my prophet, I believe. Nah, was it? Yes, it was. I think that was my prophet.
I think so.
Rest in peace, Oni Daisuke. Yeah,
he is your prophet.
Oni-chan Daisuke. Fucking stupid name. Yeah, so I was not hoping to abandon him. I just was not aware that Van was going to go there too. I mean, I had an inkling that maybe, but I think I've kind of shown this game that my expansion has been. Let's roll the dice one more time. Well, what's the worst that could happen? Let me just keep rolling the dice.
Yeah, no, I guess that's the point. Like, why did you keep on rolling the dice? Why didn't you bring them back or have them, especially with the Onishugo, where it's actually a it is a mage, and not only that, but he's also, he's an Oni summoner. But I mean, for me, when I played it, I used him until he was dead. Why is it that you do that?
I wanted land, as much land as possible. I don't get money because I'm Yomi, so I want to have as much provinces as I can to make up for it, and I did not want to be a coward.
And what's really interesting is that I see a lot of people take their opening starting army and they will suicide it because it was free. And because it cost them 0 gold, and they don't feel that it's, and it's absolutely not the most optimal troops, but it's also worth 0 gold. And I think that kind of hits on that we're talking about with this, with the gold value of a unit. So yeah, now going back to elephants, why would you, so Matt, you said that you could get a bunch of them for a quick battle, and that you could throw them into that battle and maybe do some damage that may not be the gold value worth it, but it might be worth in other ways. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. One of the things that I really see that's interesting in Dominions is that you'll have an enemy that is smaller than you, or you will see a battle with Lucid on one of his channels or one of the other YouTubers' channels, and he'll be looking at the gold difference of somebody who's smaller than him. I still don't think it's bad. But in war, do you try to take that efficient trade, or do you try to win the war? RCK, how do you balance winning the war versus winning the war efficiently?
Well, that's a difficult question. Now, whenever I go to war, there's never a peace out. It's either one of us dies. That's how it ends. That's always how it is. And it's usually I'll try to end it as quickly as I can, but it's usually not the case. That's just a difficult question, to be honest.
Mazarin, what is your emphasis on, being efficient or finishing the war quickly?
I think they're one and the same. Finishing a war quickly is going to be more efficient generally, even if you're making what are in the short term less efficient moves, so to speak, on a gold by gold basis. You're still fighting for less time. But even more important than that, in terms of larger Diplo game state considerations, you don't want to be stuck in a war that's dragging on while other players pull ahead of you, and you don't want to be stuck in a war that makes you look weak. I think that's even more important for wrapping up a war.
And one of the things that's really interesting, and I see as what you're talking about, the urgent move, while there are some urgent moves, there's also risky moves. How do you see that those two are related, Maz?
That's a good question. Yeah, there are risky moves. You do need to ask yourself and be mindful of this notion of risk reward. Definitely, that's true in expansion, right? You've got that Crystal Amazon province that's right next to you. You want to make sure you got it, and you want to make sure you deny it to somebody else. But boy, you're just not sure if you're going to get it. Do you take it? Do you don't? That's a tricky question. And then there's a larger issue of do I even go to war with this neighbor or that neighbor? And a given war or a given timing of a war might be particularly risky, but the payoff could be there, so that makes it worthwhile.
I think we have an excellent example of this as well, dude. Because look at this. This is a lizard province that's a larger province. So that's probably not gonna be a lot more money, but still a lizard province. You've got Vanheim with their force here. You've got Dione here, and he's probably going to lose, but he could risk taking on these lizards right here and possibly taking this province. Are you willing to do something like this where you might take a bump that you might lose? Is that worth the risk?
Yeah, that is a tough question. And I think a lot of that speaks to just player style. I think Dominions probably rewards the riskier move generally. But yeah, it's worth it if it works out, and it's not if it doesn't, is what it really comes down to.
Grippa, have you done any game risking risks before?
Yes, many times.
Have they worked both ways?
Yes, most of the time. It's hard to tell because you don't want. I feel many oftentimes you have to commit to something, and you can say that one large battle, mano a mano, your army, your death stack meets my death stack is a game defining and possibly game losing choice. It's hard to tell, and I've definitely done it.
RCK, have you had any risks that you've taken that have gone horribly south?
Yeah, most of them. Like that time. Well, I was explaining it earlier. Where I told you a player kind of accused me of doing things, and I was like, "All right, screw it. I know this is pretty much I'm gonna die, but I'm gonna go for it anyway."
Yeah.
I have a lot of occasions like that. I usually pick the wrong targets of going to wars, and most of the time they end up poorly.
Yes.
I've been trying to get better at raiding. That's been a big problem for me. I know how hurtful raiding is to another player, how much it can affect their economy,
and their
slow down
moral
their
too.
production. Yeah. But
it's one of the interesting things. I remember Vish, when we first started playing, Vish would see my turns and he would just be like, "You're taking too many risks," and I got away with them. And I think that he was correct. It was too many risks. It's just that I got away with them, and it won us the game. The risks that I took, and I don't know if we would have still won the game if we would have went with his route, because you never know what would happen. But at the same time, I could have just as easily gotten burned and lost the game because of my risks. Maz, with the risks that you take, the the risks that you don't have to take, the ones that are actually like not the battle versus battle where you have to take that fight. You got to take it eventually. But maybe like a raid that is kind of a more expensive raid, or moving an army someplace where you're going into their territory knowing that they may PD them. Do you take those risks, and if they fail, do you keep on taking them?
That's a good question. I think the way I think about it is it's like poker. There's risks in poker, and there's a lot of luck in poker. And the good players are the ones who really can assess that risk well, so that in the long run, they come out ahead. And the bad players are the ones that don't do that well, and they fall behind. And I think Dominions is very much the same. Speaking directly to your example, you took risks that were maybe not justified, but they happened to work out. I think the good players are the ones that know that, yes, this is a risk worth taking. This is one that isn't. And in the long run, it will pay out. So, someone like Nosy, when you look at their game history, they will have won more games than a newer player because they're good at that risk assessment. And it's just something that comes with time.
What's interesting is you say like Nosy, or you brought up Nosy as an example, and I like that because we saw his expansions, and some of his expansions, I feel they hit on your urgency idea. He took those provinces because he wanted to be able to take them before somebody else did. Whereas, some of them might not have been the best attacks, but he wanted to at least get a shot at that province. If you are playing against a player that and let's go back to the rating idea, that is a risky player, how much do you prepare for the risk? And I want to give a specific example. One of my favorite moves to do, is to do the surprise attack on the capital, where they think you're going to raid, and instead of raiding, you hit their capital with a bunch of units that can go too far away. How much should you defend against the wild, 50-50 grabs against your capital? RCK, how much should you be preparing against the risk takers?
I will say that has happened recently in the Luce's tournament that's currently going on. It is a late age game, and I am attacked by the Vanheim equivalent LA Nation. I don't know if they're still. Is it Midgard?
I think that's correct. Yeah.
Midgard. I did patrol my capital the turn that our nap ended, and I did catch, I don't know, 5 or 6 vans or something like that. But at the end of the day, I'm losing the raiding war, which is really hurting. I mean, at this point, I'm pretty much down to 2 castles, my capital, and I think 1 province. And that's very unfortunate.
Are you still there, dude?
Yeah, I'm still here. Other than that, I mean, I still have my armies, but I don't know. Fighting elves is always a difficult thing because, I mean, what's coming. They're about to attack like 5 different places at one time, and it's hard to really prioritize what you need to stop, how many units you need to send, what's good against vans, what's not good against vans, what's kind of that tipping point where, okay, is this all going to be good enough to fight 5 vans, or is there going to be more than 5 vans there? Or it's difficult, but I don't know.
I think that you hit it like on the head. The elven play is like the definition of the risky play, because elves are expensive, and if you clobber one of his expansion parties, you do significant damage to him. How do you predict somebody's risky plays, Grippa?
Part of it is you have to see where they're at in the game stat, like where they're. Let me rephrase that. Where is the game for them, and what can they do about it? Are they currently winning? Are they going for thrones to win the game completely? Are they losing and need to do something now before they lose everything? You have to kind of figure out like it's. I mean, Lucid just released a video on this actual topic with like the game theory related to Dominions. Like they can do A, B, and C, and how good is each A, B, and C for them, and what can you do for those reactions? And you have to like be able to narrow it down based on like in this situation, Pan is huge. Pan can do anything he pretty much wants right now. Who he declares war on is going to be really pressured. So what does that make? So what is his neighbors going to do? They're probably going to coalition against him. Like if there's a Pan that's large, yeah, I'd be terrified of them if I was the Marvernia right there. If I was Ubar to his south, or if you knew he's that large, um, you
It is
have to
nuts
react to
how
that.
big he is. He has got so many provinces. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 provinces already on
And I'll be right
turn
back.
on turn 9. Oh, you can't leave us mid thought, dude. That's wrong. Okay. Another thing that's interesting is the idea of initiative, because I think that a surprise move can kind of give you the initiative. Mads, when you're fighting in a war, how important is the initiative in fighting in the other person's territory? Will you sacrifice in order to put it onto their territory?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that question has some aspects to it that are Dominions specific, I think. I think early and mid game, you really want to take the fight into their territory. That notion of initiative, putting your opponent, on the defensive foot, onto their back foot, that really does have a lot of value, not just psychologically, just in terms of the way the game plays out. You lose momentum, you lose the ability to recruit, you've done that economic damage. Your moves become more deterministic when you're defensive. But what I've learned as a player is that as I start to make it more to the end game more reliably, that changes. It's a lot harder to attack into someone in the late game. And so I'm starting to develop this awareness, and I'm starting to develop this idea that when is it good to gain the initiative by attacking, and when you need to do something else in the late game.
I like that. Now we're gonna change. Footing just a little bit, and for the last bit of this episode, I want to look at what would you do in their circumstances. Now, if you're gonna do the same thing, just don't tell me that it's what actually happened. Rather, just say this is what I would do in this case. I want to start off with Missourian. If you are the Ubar player, what is your goal at this point?
At this point,
you see Pan on your north and on your south.
Mm-hmm.
You have Van. You've got everybody on your border. He borders just about everybody.
I think what I do as Ubar is, it's a little hard to say because I've got more knowledge than Ubar would actually have. But if I am assuming that Pan is in danger of getting out of control because he is so large, independent of my relationship with him, I am looking to check any player that is threatening to break out or pull a significant degree ahead of where I'm at. I try and identify that player, and I'm going to try and identify a coalition partner who's about on my level to work with. And I think based on what Ubar knows, he's going to identify Pan as that player that's threatening to run away. And he's looking at probably me and probably Machaka as potential partners to try and rein Pan in.
Excellent. Okay, RCK, you are now the Yomi player. What would you be doing in this situation?
At this point in the game, since you do have your Dione coming out, I don't know how much equipment you have for him at this time, or if you're in construction too or not, or how far you've gone in that. I would be deciding on easy rush targets at this point. You might be able to rush Ubar. I'm not entirely sure, and maybe Marverni. I wouldn't mess with Vanheim. I wouldn't mess with Helheim. You do board well. You don't border pan yet. Actually, you do not border pan. I would probably try to go into Marverni actually because Marverni does have a weaker early game, and I feel like your thugs will be good enough to outmatch them. I don't remember what Marverni's bless was at right now, but I do feel like that was a potential.
I like your idea too because you've got this road that comes straight down here and then goes right into the heart of Marverni. It's pretty good borders. Would you wait to see if Van and Helheim declared war, or would you would you go first? Would you try to steal the march?
Oh, you know they're going to declare war on somebody quick, but I do think at this point you did get a nap 3 with Marverni, didn't you?
Yes, I signed a nap after finding out the Ubar stuff of trying to coalition me.
And I do feel like that would have left you like really strung out as a nation. You've been like really long, but not really. You've been attacked easily by multiple people. That's a
Yeah.
tough one.
So right now you wouldn't know if you'd probably go into negotiations and see what you can find out from other players, or would you?
Honestly, probably just to see what was going on at the time.
Okay, Grippa, you get to play a power player. Vanheim, who's your target?
He's got a good border with Marverni to attack through. He's got a good border with Machaca. If he knew how badly Machaca expanded, he should probably go for him. Just because, there's not much. Like, you can stomp that threat out pretty good right there. He could attack me. I still haven't taken that elephant province in my cap circle. So he doesn't have the greatest of borders with me to attack. So I would say either Marverni or Machaca. Between those two, I'd probably fear Marverni more because of what they could become. So I would prefer to attack them.
Yeah, it looks like he has a lot of choices of who to attack and who not to attack. So kind of interesting. Okay, guys. Well, I'm gonna cut the episode a little short on this one, as we're not in a position to do anything else. So I want to thank you guys very much for joining up with us. Grippa, thanks for joining.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.
Missourian, thanks again for joining up with us.
Thank you very much.
RCK, it's been an honor to once again watch you. And hopefully we'll see this province get taken next turn.
It's good to be here.
Okay, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.